mission, and this is the only Splinter Cell-like thing I can have in the background right now. So, I also made my character look semi-like, I guess, double agent Sam Fisher if he had a full beard. Kind of like recent Sam Fisher from Wildlands and Breakpoint. But it's not gray. Other than that, I had more to say on the Splinter Cell Metal Gear thing. There were a couple of things as I was talking with my friend about Metal Gear Solid and the Splinter Cell series. I came up with more stuff that I thought was interesting to talk about.
Everyone on the ground,
but,
get down.
And keep in mind, this is like even the first video, that I think most of this counts as just my opinion. There are things that I talk about from a versus point of view because it's a versus video, and that I try to go into. That's why I hate this mission. I might just do a different mission because that is so stupid. The AI in this is just impeccable, isn't it? They just do not want to go somewhere safe from being shot down by a turret. Idiots. But I'm hoping too that this doesn't. Yeah, I'm going to do a different mission because that one sucks.
Madre Coca's enforcers arrive every night to collect the coca leaf harvest.
Shut up. A lot of loading screens. It's like I'm playing Anthem or something. But I had more to say on Metal Gear Solid versus Splinter Cell. Keep in mind that a lot of it is my opinion, but I am going over certain aspects that I do think benefit one more than the other, maybe, or what one may have problems, whatever it may be. Sadly, a lot of the things that I kind of came up with, but there's still a lot of good to come out of both sides. But as I was looking through it, I thought about stuff like, take for example, Splinter Cell and its story and setup. You can go into any of the games not knowing the previous game. You can just hop right into any one of the games. There are certain aspects that you need a little bit of context to, but it isn't much. When you can't jump into any Metal Gear Solid game and expect to know everything there is from it. And while I can see the side of like, oh, that has a lot of potential, it's got and I love complicated stories, I love intricate stories, but I do think it hinders it from being a bigger deal, from people being able to hop right in and get the gist of it. Another thing is, I think that Metal Gear's controls are wonky and they don't age well, and they were kind of like, we come to know typical third-person shooter-like games, and while Sam Fisher, both games have a slow, methodical approach, you can tell that Sam Fisher's more weighty until like the later Conviction and Blacklist games. And don't get me wrong, there's problems with those games, but there are some good sides as well. To both series, like the latest games. And of course, like the Splinter Cells, the Splinter Cell multiplayer stuff is definitely like way better than any Metal Gear multiplayer stuff, because it is highly remembered fondly and it's really unique. And it connects with the main story as well in parts, which is a really cool thing. You don't see that kind of effort. There's also animations, say, to Sam Fisher when he's coming up closer to a target, and you can slowly see his animation change, and he's going for his knife and such. I love that stuff.
Looks like the Cocaleros are putting together
and there's just a lot of good attention to detail.
Got an opportunity to take out Santa Blanca forces while they're around. Let's move.
Okay, this is more my mission. And another thing is, I think that while Metal Gear has iconic sound effects, such as the exclamation point and the sound that will go off for that, the music is iconic. Though Splinter Cells is no joke, Splinter Cell still has really good music that I do feel at times is underrated compared to Metal Gear. And Metal Gear does have other iconic stuff such as the bandana and such. And Metal Gear is meant to be more like the main character is your 80s action hero character, where Sam Fisher is much more a relatable family man. He's more of an organic character, an everyday man kind of character.
Marking an enemy.
I got a Sicario with a
Gotta have you
minigun
easily.
in the field.
And it's meant to feel more realistic and grounded, where Metal Gear is more sci-fi approach to things, a sci-fi pass.
Round just missed him. He's looking for the source. Heads up, Narco with a submachine
I got him.
Field.
I don't know if the rain covers your footsteps in this game. And the typical gameplay we've come to know, like third-person kind of shooters, I wouldn't call Splinter Cell. And when it comes to iconic stuff, Splinter Cell's got iconic stuff. I don't know many of the weapons of Metal Gear, other than the Metal Gears themselves, that are iconic, as, say, the SC-20K, or when they had variants like the 30K and such. And they're just very iconic weapons. Even his pistol, while it's a standard, the pistol, the 5.7, became pretty memorable in the series. And of course his goggles, trifocal goggles. Even Tom Clancy himself questioned why they are glowing in the game, and he said it's only glowing from the perspective. It does help you to kind of see where your character is if you don't have night vision, or your night vision is working in the game. So that's pretty dope. Splinter Cell's being more merchandised now, and I do hate that kind of stuff. It's the same reason I was never a giant Cloud Strife fan. I felt like Cloud was over-advertised and stuff, and I hope the same stuff doesn't overblow Sam Fisher's character, or people don't even realize Sam Fisher has his own games at this point. But I do think there's a lot of good that can come of it too, because I do feel like Splinter Cell, to an extent, is underrated. But it's still famous. I mean, the fact that it can hold its own as one of the best stealth games, and that it's always in battles constantly with Metal Gear, I think is a feat on its own. And another thing I have to say, I think Splinter Cell has a bigger advantage console-wise, not only because of the different versions of the games on each console, and I love how that is. Metal Gear's got that too, with Metal Gear Solid 3 Substance, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. And there are some differences there. There are some cool... I love some of the mini-games, the Metal Gear games. But with Splinter Cell, you've got multi-platform, and I'm going to make a series about this, but I always found it so weird when a game that is only on one platform series, until later on, of course, which is in the case of Metal Gear, becomes bigger than the game that's on multiple platforms. Take, for example, God of War beat Red Dead Redemption 2, yet Red Dead 2 is on more platforms. Metal Gear series was mostly on... It started out on Nintendo platforms, the Metal Gear games, but Metal Gear Solid was mostly a PlayStation exclusive, where Splinter Cell was a pretty much every platform type of game. And while Metal Gear did spread out to other consoles eventually, it took a little too long for that, as well as it's probably...
Check your targets. We got civilians
Whoops.
in the area. Watch your fucking fire! Get down!
Bah! Crap, I thought that was, well, that wasn't good. Yeah, we almost got this. They're almost all gone. I'm testing out different weapons, by the way, to see how they are. I guess it's time to test this weapon out now. But, I love all the different gadgets. Sam Fisher's gun has, like, so many attachments. That's a pretty cool shotgun. I got a silencer on it. I love the advertisements for... I think that the box art is better with Metal Gear. Metal Gear's got way better box art. There's still some good box art with Splinter Cell. I do love the Chaos Theory box art where he's hanging upside down. Depending on it, I think the box art does change depending on
Came from the field.
different versions. But still, there are some good box art. I do like the original Splinter Cells where he's silhouetted and you see his goggles. And you see a bit of light and such in the background. The later games got a little goofier. There are where it's just dude with a gun on the cover, which is just boring. But they weren't all that bad compared to some of the games we've seen with boring covers like that. Some of them popped out with colors, and some of them were just too bland. I thought Blacklist's cover was too bland. It was just black and white colors, really colorless. Where Conviction, the greens and reds really popped out. There we go. What's in here?
Clear over here. God, these fuckers are sloppy.
Hey, watch your family. Got a helicopter. Yay! The only good way of traveling in one of these games. Because goddamn is a car and such annoying. Especially a motorcycle. It's cool at first on a motorcycle, but after a while it's not useful for traversing the land. Oh, those are enemies.
I have a shot. Here comes some more of them. Moving to position. I need a better position. I need to get to a better position. Target marked. Target acquired.
Come on. There's barely any cover around here. Going back to Metal Gear, I think Metal Gear's controls haven't aged well when we come to typical shooters now. Splinter Cell's gameplay style has aged better, and more people play with that style of gameplay. I'm not saying that Splinter Cell invented that, definitely not, but it's come to be the one known. A lot of the controls were very kind of old and outdated and weird even, that somebody who was used to the type of games we have now would have aneurysm with the stinging controls of a Metal Gear game. And then there's stuff like the camera angle and such
I'm getting a position.
Of some of the games. We use the camera angle. And while I can see the tactical side of how they can use the camera angle.
Say the word, boss. That tango's down.
We're done here. The cartel won't
There
get
we
any
go.
coke from these guys
Yeah.
anymore. Now we exfil and wait for the fallout.
So, I think that Splinter Cell ages better in that department. They both have very similar things other than the $30 demo of Ground Zeroes. I think the level design of most, like I was saying, most of the levels are iconic. There's iconic levels for both series, but I more likely hear about some of the, such as the train level and the bank level, Chaos Theory, Pandora Tomorrow, and all that, and there are different approaches, especially later on in the series, to how you go about each level. Even Conviction has different approaches. It's still limited compared to the previous Splinter Cells, but there are still different things and approaches you can do. It's just not as variety-filled. Even the story to like the co-op and such is really good. And I love how it can connect with the main story. There's even several books based around the co-op. I think Endgame was the book that touched more on what happened to the story after Kestrel and Archer. But other than that, and I will be doing those read-alongs sometime soon, Splinter Cell's also getting its own TV show, which is dope. I'm hearing a remake is coming for Metal Gear, but sadly, Metal Gear just... I don't trust Konami with Metal Gear's license right now after Survive and such. It's just kind of sad. Obviously, the creators, once again, as I said in my previous video, of Splinter Cell love the Metal Gear series. That's why they made Sam Fisher. He is inspired from Snake, so you can give Snake props for that. Technically, either one of these series, even though I gave the win because of the character development, the controls age better and are used more in modern day gaming in a Splinter Cell game. And even Metal Gear kind of takes up that control scheme of what Splinter Cell has. And though I wouldn't say it created it, it definitely went with the right control scheme that ages better. And both games I think have their fair share of iconic things. The fact that Splinter Cell can hold its own and has gone up in several battles on different channels against against Metal Gear is quite a feat on its own. I think that is quite a special thing that it should be notable for. And now Splinter Cell is becoming bigger just because people want to see a new Splinter Cell game, as well as people want to see Michael Ironside return as Sam Fisher and all the advertising and such. And while like Cloud Strife, I hate overbloated advertising, I do think it is a decent enough time for the advertising, and I hope they do something really good with it. I hear there's a VR Splinter Cell which they could do a lot of really cool things with, and hopefully a mainline Splinter Cell. You might want to step back, dude. Actually, let's do this with my iconic pistol. Yeah, Sam Fisher, Solid Snake both have their own share of iconic stuff. I think Metal Gear has better box art and it has more memorable music, though Splinter Cell should not be shied away from because it is still really good. And I do think both series have their share of iconic things. Splinter Cell, you have stuff like the 5.7 gun became pretty famous in the Splinter Cell series, and you got the SC 20K, 30K, whatever K it is now. As well as his trademark goggles and such. Snake, you got the bandana. Snake, there's a lot of 80s inspired stuff, but you don't, not only is there different characters, so you don't get to latch on to just one individual character to get to know them, where you get to know Sam more, but I can see the argument of the variety being something that somebody would love to see, and you can't just jump into a Metal Gear game knowing what's going on. You kind of need to play the whole series, where in Splinter Cell you can pretty much jump in at any point, and I think it is a good advantage. As well, Splinter Cell's got the advantage ahead of time of being on multiple platforms, where Metal Gear was mostly a PlayStation game until later with stuff like Twin Snakes, which I think is only on one platform. I think GameCube, I can't remember. Conviction was the only one that was a exclusive game, but other than that, and even like the worst in the series of both these game series are known as some really good games. Conviction is called a badass simulator, and while people hated the ending and the fact that you're not playing Solid Snake in 2, people still love Metal Gear Solid 2 more today. The controls age better in Splinter Cell. It's a control scheme we've come to know and love, and that people are used to. It's stuff well, once again, Splinter Cell didn't create it. It's a control scheme you see in stuff like even battle royales today with PUBG and Fortnite and such. It's become a synonymous control scheme, and while Metal Gear is unique for that, it doesn't age well, and it can be a bit wonky and weird and clunky to play. Which, once again, if you love that kind of gameplay, then that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I do think that how it ages doesn't always work. And due to the fact that their character is mostly just meant to be your typical badass 80s action hero-like character, I don't think the character ages too well either, sadly. There's still a lot of things that the Snake characters go through. I think Naked Snake is my favorite because I feel like he goes through the most stuff, the most grief-wrenching stuff, whether it be killing off his pretty much mother figure of the boss and becoming the big boss, and other such big things that happen in throughout his career. Talk to Scott Mitchell. Ooh, what is this? Okay. If you guys know who Scott Mitchell is, he is from the Advanced Warfare series. That's interesting. Did I just, like, totally skip a helicopter that was up there? I probably did. Whatever. Can I change my guns right here, right now? Or whatever? I don't think I can. I do like that. That is a pretty cool weapon. Okay, what is this? Assault rifle. Okay, so that's an assault rifle. This is a... Huh. That's an assault rifle? What? What is this? Light machine gun. Okay. Yeah, I'll use that. Why not? It doesn't come with a silencer, does it? I do not think... Okay, it does not come with a silencer. Ooh, neither of these come with a silencer. So, let's go see our good old buddy friend over there. Oh my goodness. Seeing those mountains, I might actually have to find a helicopter. Okay, let's go back up there, and we can go to Scott Mitchell. I accidentally clicked on a plant. Oh, the cars, jeez. Should we get run over, jeez. Okay, we're gonna have to find a way up there. So, those are basically all I have to add, really, to the discussion of Metal Gear Solid versus Splinter Cell. I'm sure there's stuff that I'm forgetting from my conversation, but that's mostly what I want to add. I feel like this went over better than my first video. My first video, I was, if you can tell, I was nervous and such, and it's not an easy discussion between two of the biggest stealth games, and you know you're probably going to get people who are going to like you depending on one or the other. It really depends. Either game could win. I do think that both have sides to them that are memorable in their own way. And I guess in one case you could actually take a Dark Knight quote for one, because Splinter Cell technically can still be alive, but with what Ubisoft does nowadays to their games, with all the additions and the microtransactions and all that, the boring open worlds, and like collectathon trend that it's kind of followed in the footsteps of, you can definitely see like at where Metal Gear has pretty much died, other than the fact that technically they haven't really killed off Metal Gear, because Metal Gear is still like being like, there's possible stuff with Metal Gear, such as the fact that they have a pachinko machine, and they made that $30 demo, and they got Survive, and they got, unless you don't want to count that, I didn't count it, and of course they're putting him in Bomberman and such, Bomberman R.
I'll pilot.
Now a Battle Royale Bomberman. But other than that, the only other thing they did with Snake is that there's possibly a remake gonna happen, and I don't trust them with the remake of that game. Um, and you could probably take the quote, depending on the direction you think of it. Who is spotting me? What? Okay, who is spotting me? Is it a helicopter or something? Oh, crap. Wait, did that go past me or blow me up? I don't know. Did I dodge all of them? It'd be sweet if I did. Okay, we got Scott Mitchell here. This is pretty cool. I need to play those games for this channel. I have all those games.
Bowman,
They're
this is
dope.
Nomad. What have you got on Media Luna?
That province is all Unidad. A thug in uniform calling himself
So-
El Comandante is considered top dog out there. He's assisting Santa Blanca with security, especially against the rebels.
Shut up.
We have to break up this little
Shut
romance
up.
between Unidad and
Shut
Santa
up.
Blanca.
But,
Since El
is he
Comandante
actually
always
there?
wears a mask, we have
Ooh,
no
he's
idea
there.
who he is.
We'll look into that mystery for you and see if we can't make things uncomfortable
wait for them to
Santa
shut up.
Blanca along the way.
Yeah, it was a really hard series to make. Oh. Okay. But yeah, it's hard to do these, being such big, weird series. Keep in mind that it is mostly my opinion and like my point of view of things. But I do think there are some interesting things to kind of talk about. And Metal Gear still has some great stuff to it. I think because Splinter Cell's gameplay is still used today, even though I wouldn't say it necessarily invented it, it was one of the first ones to truly have gameplay like that. Where Metal Gear's doesn't age well, there's the benefactor of the character development, furthered in that you still have variety with different characters, but at the same time you're able to latch on to characters without a problem. You can also jump into any Splinter Cell game without a problem, where Metal Gear, you don't know what the hell's going on, so you kind of need the context of the other games, and it still gets really complicated even then. And I love complicated stories, but it is quite ridiculous shoes to fill what Metal Gear does. It's convoluted as hell, and it's all over the place. It's not as bad as stuff like how far Kingdom Hearts will go. Well, I still love Kingdom Hearts. I will admit it goes a little too far sometimes. Too ridiculous. But yeah, I still love both series. And both Splinter Cell and Metal Gear have great benefits. I think the music and the box art of Metal Gear Solid is really good, but I think both game series have iconic either weapons or wearable items for the characters, as well as the characters themselves are iconic. I think the fact that Splinter Cell can hold its own to this point is one of the best stealth games against Metal Gear, and has been in so many versus battles with Metal Gear is pretty impressive on its own too. The advertising for Splinter Cell is helping it a lot more than the advertising of Metal Gear as of lately. And there's a lot of cool beneficial things for Splinter Cell, where sadly Metal Gear is left to Konami and they're messing with the series ness, which you wish Hideo Kojima would have it back. Both Tom Clancy and Hideo Kojima are brilliant minds. Splinter Cell has the advantage early on of being on multiple platforms and more accessible compared to Metal Gear. Yeah, there's just a lot of things to each that they kind of conquer each other out. It's kind of like a big chessboard battle that they're having with one another. They both have things, and while I can definitely see Metal Gear's world is more interesting, I mean, how could it not? You got like almost superhero-like characters. You got giant robots called Metal Gears. All this ridiculous over-the-top story. And then you got just really cool stuff like cyborg ninjas, siren ninjas, or whatever. Like, how does that stuff not sound cool? Where Splinter Cell's more grounded in reality, but I think because of that, with certain aspects of his story, it can feel very real and even terrifying. Its story at times, but it's still got a great sense of humor. Where Metal Gear's got good sense of humor, but there are some things with the humor, such as Otacon wetting his pants, or a character in general wetting their pants in every game, which is just like, seriously? I don't get the humor of this. It's dumb. And the whole hiding under a box, while I understand that and it's memorable today, it is kind of silly and dumb at the same time. The fourth wall breaking can get a bit irritating as well to people, especially back in the day when they had to look that crap up or find another way to figure out stupid fourth wall breaking missions. Both games are set up very differently. Sam Fisher's more, until like later games like Conviction, Sam Fisher's more put into a mission and given like a info on his mission at the beginning, as well as a recommendation, as well as they both game series later have implement like the buy your own weapons and equipment. They do a similar thing to one another. And Metal Gear's got the survival aspects that you do see in stuff like Red Dead and Prone and such, and you see that stuff in either later Metal Gears or COD even. And hiding in tall grass, which you can do in Splinter Cell too, at least some of the games. And there are a lot. Well, actually, I think it's more like the tall grass thing was other Ubisoft open worlds, when I think about it. And there are different styles, different great story elements to both games, character development elements, but I do think because you're able to follow the characters and story of Splinter Cell a little bit better, wouldn't say easier. There's still a lot of stuff going on. It's just not as complicated, and you can jump into any game not needing too much context. It can feel it or anything, or have an over-the-top ridiculous story. There's a lot of benefits to both series. Either way could win. I see, once again, I can see why Splinter Cell has a slight advantage because of how it ages, as well as the other things I talked about with it still being a game that you can jump into anymore. It's more accessible compared to Metal Gear to people, and they both have their own share of iconic things. Metal Gear probably has better like box art and music compared to Splinter Cell, but sometimes Splinter Cell is no joke with its music and such. And there's some good box art to Splinter Cell. Not all of it, but some. Where it turns into dude with a gun later on. I think Double Agents is probably the worst box art, if I'm being honest, where it's like, Sam Fish, do cool guys don't look at explosions. He's like walking away from an exploding car or whatever. It's so dumb. At least on some covers. I don't think that's all the covers of the box art. I can take a look again. I have some of the box art in front of me. But yeah, there's Splinter Cell has more like you're dropped into a mission, and then it's kind of like Hitman's missions, where there's different entry points and there's different ways to approach the mission, as well as you get different dialogue options depending on what happens if you sound an alarm or if you do something differently. That is very interesting. There's great attention to detail with like the animations of Sam Fisher when he's sneaking up behind a dude and getting closer. He changes his animation. You can see him reaching for his weapon. That's pretty dope. I love the attention to detail. Chaos Theory and Snake Eater are definitely two games that if they battled against each other, that would be quite a clash, because those are two. There's so many similarities in both series, where the later Splinter Cells and Metal Gears were not as good as the previous You know what? Metal Gear actually has some pretty bad box art now that I think about it too. There's not too much great box art. You can flip around the sleeve of the box art for stuff like Metal Gear Solid 5 and such and have cooler looking box art, but other than that, it's just dude Snake's face on the box, and it's just ugh, where you would probably want the cover art. As a matter of fact, thinking about it, I wonder if there's different cover art for Splinter Cell in other countries too. I haven't really thought much about that, but it's interesting to keep in mind. I don't know why that plant is marked over there. But yeah, there's some pretty cool things on both sides of the conversation to have. So that's pretty much everything I have to add to the discussion. Either one of these games could win. This was probably the hardest versus for me to do, but I did find a lot that did sadly benefit Splinter Cell a little bit more than Metal Gear, such as it ages better, the accessibility of it, and the being able to jump into any story as well as attach the characters better, where Metal Gear jumps around more. With its use of characters, which I can see the argument of people loving the variety to it. And both have their shares of ups and downs, or iconic stuff to them. Whether it be mission layouts and levels, Metal Gear's missions are more linear, but at the same time they're still open areas, and you're dropped in, say Snake Eater, you're dropped in right at the beginning, and you kind of make your way through the world to the next area. It is kind of easy to get lost, and there's a lot of there's some backtracking stuff. I think another thing I'm going to add is both games also have their share of interesting cutscenes and dialogue, whether it be exposition heavy. I think Metal Gear sometimes gets a little bit more heavy with the exposition. Other than stuff like the briefing on the missions, there are a lot of exposition stuff in both, but I think Metal Gear does it more than Splinter Cell, and it gets a little ridiculous. And it gets ridiculous. And the other thing I want to bring out is when it comes to cutscenes, there are, if I'm remembering correctly, there is a cutscene or a couple of cutscenes that are super long where there's basically nothing going on in them, and that kind of sucks thinking about it. It's like, it doesn't need to be that long, and it's kind of boring to just think about. But yeah, that's basically all I have to really add. So, there's different things, there's different approaches. I can see different arguments, even ones that I haven't brought up here on both sides. Keep in mind that, once again, this is mostly my opinion. There are things that I think I bring up that are beneficial or interesting to talk about. If you have something interesting to talk about or bring up that I didn't think about, please do so. That would be pretty cool. Don't get mad and don't be an ass. Go do that somewhere else, because it's nothing new. I haven't seen it, and you look like a generic school bully doing so. So hopefully things will... Hopefully the next versus videos, I think this is it for this for right now, until I get to revise this video and I get more stuff to talk about, because there's just a lot of interesting things I still like talking about with Metal Gear. It was a lot harder doing this than it was the other versus series, but I always found something interesting, and I found quite a few things to talk about with this compared to the other versus videos I've done in the past. So yeah, that's about all I have to add. I think I'll do Resident Evil and Silent Hill next time. That'll be interesting. Sadly, I'll only probably have Resident Evil as background for this time, and I want to use more actual, genuine Splinter Cell stuff and not Ghost Recon with me wearing a Splinter Cell outfit. So, hopefully, we can do something about that. So, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Like, share, and subscribe, leave your comments below, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!